So, Pir, I want to ask you something. You said you are live in Pakistan. You are Pakistan.
Yeah,
You live in a country that object to normalization with Israel, and still you, uh, from what I understand, you support normalization with Israel.
because my country does not object normalization with Israel. They did not recognize Israel.
Okay.
So there is a difference between objecting normalization with Israel and not recognizing Israel. In
Okay.
2015, there was a talk took place on foreign minister level in Turkey, where
Mm-hmm.
Pakistani foreign minister met Israeli foreign minister,
Mm-hmm.
and there was negotiations about normalization between two countries took place. So my country, I don't think that my country does not want to recognize Israel or have good ties with Israel. There must be some reservation. There must be need of some political will. There must be uh, there must be some agenda points for that. But as far as
Okay.
I know, and there is a resistance as well. There is a resistance as well. So are we now we are being recorded or it's
Yeah,
before it?
we are recording.
Okay.
So so what is your position?
I believe in that no matter what you have the grievances or the differences, you have to sit on table and talk about uh, those grievances or objections or anything reservations whatsoever those are.
So you support the normalization with Israel?
Oh yes, of course. Until unless we are not having normalized ties between two countries, we cannot be able to sit and we cannot be able to talk about the issues. And when we are not able to sit and talk about the issues, we are not able to resolve the issues.
I see.
So
So,
resolving issues, first you have to recognize one another.
mhm.
Until we don't recognize one another, we cannot sit together and we cannot talk about the issues. How can we resolve the issues?
And what is avoid Pakistan to do it?
I did not understand your question.
What what why Pakistan so doesn't do this move? If you say it's more it sounds very logical.
Yeah, I guess it is not easy. There are differences of last 70 years. We are not neighboring countries. Your neighbors are our allies. Your neighbors are our good friends. And there was a pressure from our friends not to recognize Israel.
Which friends?
Our friends who are your friends nowadays, like Saudi Arabia, like UAE, like other neighboring countries. So in the past, there was a pressure of those countries to, and there was an Arab-Israel conflict as well, Arab
Mhm.
Israel-Palestine conflict as well. So there
Yeah.
was huge political pressure inside Pakistan and outside Pakistan.
Okay. And today?
And today it is still there. It is still there in some other way. It is still there, but there is a willingness that people now people are openly talking about recognition of Israel, normalization ties with Israel, political advancements with Israel. So I
But
guess
yeah.
there are hopes that people will generate a pressure on government that they should normalize their ties with Israel.
But now you said that maybe after the Ibrahim Accords with UAE and Bahrain and Sudan, so you see that there is more chance to normalization between Pakistan and Israel?
Yeah, of course, why not? I guess it's it's somehow it's a tricky situation. People like me, we don't want that Pakistan should recognize or normalize ties with Israel in the under the influence of Saudi Arabia or UAE or any other Arab country. We want that normalization with Israel should be on the basis of our own integrity and our own identity. Like Pakistan should normalize its ties with Israel, not under any influence.
Hmm.
So
I see.
I guess, and of course, Abrahamic Accord is a way. It's like a way of opportunity, and because people inside Pakistan who opposes normalization with Israel are under influence of Saudi Arabia and UAE. So now when UAE is having normalization with Israel, they don't have logic to oppose it, oppose the idea of normalization uh, ties with Israel from Pakistan.
But still, it's very unique that you speak with Israeli media from Pakistan. I don't think that Pakistan is speaking with Israeli media from Pakistan.
Uh, if someone gets opportunity, there are people who are speaking to Israeli media from Pakistan, and there are people like me who are inviting Israelis to speak on our platforms. Like I'm inviting many Israelis to speak in my podcast.
Mhm.
Every second week, there is an Israeli who is appearing on my podcast, talking with me and talking with my audience, telling us about their culture, their history,
Yeah.
their traditions, Sufism, their colors of your society. So this is good. This is good. This is a way uh, how we can understand one another.
But it's something that couldn't happen before couple of years. You agree?
Yeah.
You agree with me?
Yeah, I agree. I agree. It needed some courage, I guess. It needed, of course, an opportunity as well, but it needed some courage. In the past, people did not come with courage. Now people have enough courage to come up with.
And you are also, you are not afraid that, maybe after our interview, maybe people will attack you
No,
because
no,
you
no,
speak.
no. Not a way behave here in Pakistan. That's not a way. They can oppose you. They can oppose your ideology, but they cannot attack you. Like
Mhm.
I'm telling you, for last 6 months, I have interviewed many Israelis, and those
In
interviews were
broadcast.
in my podcast.
Yeah. Ah, your
And
podcast. Okay.
yeah, so and
You have
those
podcast of
all
what?
sorry,
You have podcast of what?
it's basically a video online video podcast in which we discuss about Sufism, culture, peace, mutual respect, relationships.
Great.
So I have interviewed more than 10 Israelis in last 6 months,
Wow.
and every single show went live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, live. It's still available there. So no one killed me. No one attacked me. So people are now digesting the idea of friendship here in my society. They know that there cannot be any result out of fight. We have to
Mhm.
we have
I
to
want,
talk.
yeah. I want to ask you something. You said all the discussion that there is influence of UAE and Saudi Arabia. What about Iran? You have border with Iran, you have relationship with Iran, and Iran is an enemy of Israel.
Of course, and Iran has a very great influence inside Pakistan as well. They have a great influence inside Pakistan.
Mhm.
They oppose and people who are influenced by Iran, they oppose the idea of recognition of Israel or normalization with Israel. Yes, they do. But of course, there are people who likes the who advocate the idea of normalization with Israel.
Mhm. So I just want to understand you. You said that Iran is one of the maybe countries that maybe will oppose, or maybe will tell your leaders not to do it.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not sure. Maybe. But I know one thing for sure that leadership of Pakistan does not accept any kind of influence, and they did not ever in their history. If we, if our government or Pakistan uh, took these kind of pressures, we won't be alive with China because America was not happy with that.
Hmm.
We cannot be good friends with Iran because Saudi Arabia was not happy with the idea. So we never did it. We know how to balance the relationship with our allies and friends. So we balance the relationship between Iran and America, China and America, Saudi Arabia and Iran. And now, if Pakistan thinks, and Pakistan should think, normalizing its ties with Israel, we will not bother the influence of Iran.
What about the Palestinians and the Palestinian cause?
Yeah, the Palestinian cause is very near to my heart. It is very near to heart of every single Pakistani, and that's why we say that okay, guys, let's sit with Israel. Let's have good ties with Israel. And when you and me, we are friends, we can discuss anything on the table of negotiations on or a cup of coffee. And friendship is the way forward. Why?
Yeah.
Why should I threat you? We can exchange the ideas on with the smiling face as well on a cup of coffee. And
Tell us.
trust in a friendly atmosphere, I
Mhm.
am sure Palestine will get a better solution. Israel will get a better solution. The world peace will get a better solution.
I want to ask you something. In just a moment, I have something in my mind. I want to ask you, but what I want to ask you, I want to ask you what Pakistan is not a country that get cover in the Israeli media, and I want to ask you what Israelis should know about Pakistan and the Pakistanians.
Everything, everything. We are such a wonderful nation. We are such a wonderful country. We have all the weathers. We have all the taste in the world you would love to have those taste of feelings, colors, culture, heritage, history, traditions. We are very warm friends. We are very warm hosts. We are very good people to deal with. We are one of the largest nation with the high human resource.
Mhm. You have also nuclear weapon, if I don't mistake.
Yeah, Yeah, we have the same toy you are enjoying right now.
I didn't understand.
I said, yes, we have the nuclear weapon as you have it. We have the
I,
announced, you have unannounced.
so maybe it is basis to normalization.
Of course, we are living in same situation. Why Israel was formed? What was the
Mm,
reason? Because you demanded Israel and you created Israel. Because your
mm,
community was challenged, your community was threatened, you went through Holocaust. These were the reasons. And what was the ideology behind Pakistan? What is two nation theory? We were threatened, we were persecuted inside the bigger India. So we wanted independence. That's why we created Pakistan. And that's same goes with Kashmir. People used to align Kashmir with Palestinian issue. I am advocate of Kashmir issue align with the Israel issue because you have gone through Holocaust. Kashmiris are going through modern day Holocaust. So no one on earth can realize the pain of Kashmiris in occupied Kashmir, Indian occupied Kashmir, more than a Jew or an Israeli.
mm,
Israelis are the community who can exactly realize what the Kashmiris are going through nowadays inside Indian occupied Kashmir.
I want to
And
ask you
that's a
something.
common ground for us.
When we will see you in Israel, you want to visit Israel?
Me,
Yeah,
tomorrow, I would love to be there.
but
I
you
would love
can't
to.
now.
I guess I will. I will apply for my visa. The
I see.
day Corona days gone and lockdown over, I will request for a visa.
When
Uh,
it will be normalization.
It will be a step towards normalization.
Hmm.
I'm not
So,
state, I'm not government. I'm a common Pakistani. But I am a global citizen as well. So
yeah.
I will step forward towards normalization. I will step forward towards friendship. I will step forward towards peace.
Tell us about your activities. You know, you are a Sufi sheikh, I see.
Yeah.
And tell us about your activities and also about your podcast with Israelis. It's very interesting.
Yeah. I am also running a Sufi think tank. It's named Saluk. It's a Sufi think tank. And my podcast is all about Sufism, Sufi communities, everything which is relating with Sufism or the Sufi communities. I used to interview Sufi sheikhs, scholars, experts on issues. So I interviewed Dr. Nancy, Dr. Barak, Dr. Yohanan from Israel, Dr. UC
Mm.
Shane. I interviewed him 2 times, and so on and so on. And this was a very good experience to know Israel and Jewish community through these experts. They are wonderful people. They reflect your society,
Mhm. So you
and
make
that
a podcast with 10 Israelis,
mo- more than 10 Israelis.
and it happened this year or before?
No, in this year, I
And
started it.
why you started this with the dialogue with Israelis?
No, it was not with Israelis. I started my podcast during lockdowns when there was no activity on the ground. We were not able to meet anyone. There were no conferences, there were no meetings, there were no seminars. So things started getting space in cyber world. So we had these online conferences, and then I hosted an online conference. During that conference, I got to know how to host an online conference or interview, conduct an interview. Then I started it with my friends, very
Yeah.
close friends, journalists, experts, Sufi sheikhs. And meanwhile, I got connected with Dr. Nancy through a friend.
Mhm.
And she is an excellent lady, and she is expert on terrorism, violent extremist terrorism. She's very capable lady. So that was my first opportunity to interview an Israeli.
When it
And
was?
after, sorry,
When it was?
it was in July
Mm,
this year.
I see.
And
So
then,
this is your first connection with Israel was.
yeah, it was my very first connection with any Israeli person.
Right. So you said that the corona is one of the causes for this dialogue.
Yeah, there was lockdown, so there was no other activity. I started my podcast. If there was no lockdown, no podcast. And
So to the end, I want to ask you what you wish for, what we have to wish you, and what is your message to the Israeli people?
I would like to tell them that Pakistan is a country which gone through and suffered through terrorism for last 20 years. No one on planet Earth knows the importance of peace more than us, and we wish for you a peaceful life, and we want you to wish us a peaceful life. And I guess peace and peaceful future for our next generations is a point where we can start our negotiations, where we can start our journey towards a peaceful future.
You believe that your leadership will make this step, because what I hear from their statements that it's far away.
The political statement goes like they always go like that. But I know one thing, that my country is a very strong country. My country's leadership, whether they are in government or they are in opposition, they're strong people. So if they go for a decision, they can have the decision, they have the capacity to implement that decision. And that is what important. And I guess this is not necessary that we become friends. We can be partners initially. We can start working on issues together. But we have to learn, agree to disagree. And for that learning, and for the process of agree to disagree, we have to sit together. That's the start. Let's start sitting together. Let's
Yeah.
start listening one another. Let's start understanding one another. And I am sure the day, look, now Israelis are in a position where they see, okay, on our right, they don't recognize us. On our left, they don't recognize us. On our back, they don't recognize us. On far front, they don't recognize us. But the day when your Israeli prime minister will sitting inside a circle of Muslim leadership around him, and they will asking him for a peaceful solution in a friendly manner inside Tel Aviv, inside Jerusalem. You will be hosting all the Muslim leaders, and they are sitting around your prime minister, and your media is telecasting the scene. There will be a peaceful solution for our futures. And Israelis will give that peaceful solution. We need to bring them on that level of friendship where there is no win and where there is no lose. When you become friends, then there is no discussion of win and lose. Then it's everything is fine kind of situation.
Okay, thank you very much for this conversation. It was great pleasure, and I hope that we will meet you in Islamabad or in Tel Aviv or in Jerusalem.
Inshallah, I would love to host you here in Islamabad. I would love to
Th-
host you here in Islamabad.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Fear, and we will be in touch, okay?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.